Ever wondered what makes TV so powerful in Jamaica? Time to find out. Welcome to Global TV Group 358, where television meets innovation. We're not just about shows, we're about shaping society. In Jamaica, TV keeps you informed, connects diverse voices, and supports democracy. Imagine a Jamaica where broadcasters unite, sharing data and collaborating globally. That's us, a unified voice in the TV industry. Did you know TV advertising is still king? It drives website traffic, boosts brand equity, and powers integrated campaigns. Even in an age of digital, TV stands strong, resilient in tough times. Our global TV deck is your treasure trove of insights and data. With charts, graphs, and success stories, it's your guide to impactful TV advertising. Curious to learn more? Visit our website and see how Global TV Group 358 keeps television at the heart of entertainment in Jamaica. Get ready to binge watch the future.
For me again, you can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't for me again. Can't for me again. You can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't for me again.
What fi go to eat no money, what fi at you, eat no at you. Covid money, miss away in the year little rat you. Use the youth, the money, waste for must a man to statue. Say me like a catch you, but me got in a figure you. Take the spit of money, gal and say that is not you. One day the man above me up him, I got up. Too much it in the kitchen, some a fly by like a patu. My singers and DJs and social media's coming at you.
It burn me.
300%
It burn me.
Garbage pile of it.
It burn me.
Give the teacher them
It
raise.
burn me.
I see corruption face.
It burn me.
Mash down the people them house.
It burn me.
Every day appear arms out.
It burn me.
Appear money them a thief.
It burn me.
And them a sell out with each.
Can't for me again. You can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't for me again. Can't for me again. You can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't for me again.
Come me say big up all the charities and all of the givers. Some a go like say them powerful, me no make a bigger. The already promises none of them not deliver. Cut up the youth and rap and they down in our river. Member bold money and they lie them tell. Corruption smell and they pocket them swell. When police don't a market like Satan out of hell, go mash up people start like people themselves.
It burn me.
Or they treat the market man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat the cat man.
It burn me.
Or they treat the peanut man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat the dirt man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat the sun man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat policeman.
It burn me.
How them a treat soldier man.
It burn me.
How them a treat everyone.
Can't for me again. You can't for me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't for me again. Can't for me again. You can't.
Good evening, and welcome to Global TV. Thank you for joining us. It is the people's point of view. JPS said, no, Mrs. Sino. JPS. You remember JPS in a Beryl wedding? Yes. That same JPS said, they're promising us a resilient JPS grid that will withstand a Category 5 hurricane. I wonder when was that put in place, if that was done since burial, and how much they have spent to put those resilient grids, or resistant rather grids, in public. I think it's just a made up story, because we remember the shaky JPS were there, where if residents want them light back, them have to dig them own hole for plant them lamp posts. So me don't know when we're gonna get the resistant grid. We make sure say when hurricane come and pitch and toss we all about, so the grid safe. But they can make up things and tell we to them no say we not really to have a lot of sense, and we will just believe anything what anybody tell we. To my community of party and all my family members, platform moderators, membership holders, viewers, subscribers, commenters, and trolls, good evening and welcome. Thank you all for joining us this evening. The Prime Minister also promised, said, he is going to help the people of Central Kingston who were burnt out by the fire. But you know, the Prime Minister wants you to tell him, I want you to prove to him that you have ownership of the land, which sparks something immediate for me. And the question was asked by the Prime Minister, asked to the Prime Minister by a concerned resident. The Prime Minister gave an answer, we'll let you heard it, but can we take our leaders' word for it when they say certain things to us, especially on the eve of a general election? Let's see how that might pan out. Debbie Jervis TV, Wagwan, Beat and Teach, good evening, and welcome to Global TV. Who else is here? Sharon Bernard, Keith Matthews, Marcia Thomas. Good evening, and welcome. RJ, good evening. Violet Watson, Norman Ferguson, Sandra Ellis. Good evening. Sharon Bernard, good evening and welcome. Carl Roberts, good evening. Canadian Gal, good evening. Ladybug. Renice Nicholson, Sophia Hall. Jamrak 8766. Joan Bailey, Jennifer Simpson, Ladybug, Colleen Richards, Eugene Thompson. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Like and share the live for us, please. Let's see who is on TikTok. Sexy K, One Father, Tarzan, Lyndon. Who this? Shami Queen, Debbie and Duncan, Progressive Youth, Kevin Thompson, Lady Andrea, Iona, Hamad, Scott, Michael, David, this Insatiable, Nikki, Carlene, Veronica, Best Dance, Winston, Kashmir Chin, Got Philberth, Shortman, Christopher, Nikisha, CW, Owen, Winston, Big Woman, User 38, Gayon, Alexander. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us. If you were watching yesterday's press conference, you would have heard Dana going on and on about how low crime has been for the last 25 years. For 25 years, it's the lowest crime has ever been, because from their statistic, they say 47 people were murdered in February. And by their statistic, they say that's the lowest since 2000, 2001. One of the things that we regularly ask them for, how do you reach these figures, beat and teach? How do you get all the way to these figures? But a long time we're asked for how them record these crime figures and how them tally them or whatever, who is caught into that net. We still won't know except for the government. Beat and teach, welcome to TikTok. The government, and we have an announcement to make over here, over TikTok tonight. The government just rolled up figures along the way, give it to us, and we just have to take it. Yes, it's the observer I want. We're going to listen to the Prime Minister talking to the people of Central Kingston. And the Prime Minister's
fire. We're going to try and do it.
And we also hope that the residents of Central Kingston gets the help that our Prime Minister promises them. Let's listen to Bros, how you do? Durant Clark, Blue Waves. Joan Bailey, how do? Let us listen to the Prime Minister speaking with the people of Central Kingston.
Let me assure you that we are going to assist those persons who have been displaced by the fire. We're going to try and do it as quickly as possible. But it is not something that can happen overnight. Before we can assist in any meaningful way other than the humanitarian assistance, which is already in train, the building assistance, we have to determine the ownership of the land. That's number one. And then we have to do some social investigation into the circumstances of the persons to determine the extent to which we can help. All of that we are going to put into train to ensure that we can help the persons dislocated to come back to some form of normalcy. Very good question. We cannot build on property that we don't know who owns it. We can't just go onto people's property and build. So we have to establish ownership. Once ownership is established, then we can determine what we can do, whether it is to replace a building or to give a grant. Now, for those persons who are living on property that they don't own or don't have the title to, then we still will help, but we will help you maybe with building material or some other form of assistance.
Williams,
but we cannot build on land that is not our land, or we don't have the rights to build on it. That's just the reality of the situation.
The unstoppable one.
So understand from the Member of Parliament that the land situation is being assessed, that they do have titles and permission. And so for those that they don't have the title or they know who the owners are, then we will seek to get permission from the owners to build. But the first thing is to establish who owns the land so that the government itself is not violating people's property rights by going on to people's land and doing whatever we choose. That's not how we operate. All right. So anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for the welcome, and we'll do as much as we can very quickly. All right.
Okay. Leave the land ownership that the Prime Minister spoke about and that he would want clarity from those people. Leave that aside for just 1 minute or so. Let's focus on the help the Prime Minister planned to bring to the people, the assistance. The Prime Minister tell us say it's not going to be a quick fix. It's not going to be an overnight thing. Probably something that mirrors burial, as the Prime Minister is explaining. Remember, Hugh Edwards, what the man named, the tourist man, told the BBC that we recovered very quickly from COVID. But we saw just last week, the Prime Minister was handing out COVID checks to people in St. Catherine. This is months. Edmund Bartlett, thank you. This is months after their claimed recovery. We have recovered within weeks. Within weeks. And then months down the line, we see the Prime Minister handing out checks. The reason when it comes now to the ownership of land, don't really have a problem with the Prime Minister verifying if people own their land. But we know a lot of some of these areas in central or western Kingston are subjected to the term squatters' land, or so on and so forth. Can we trust the government to believe that in this land grab Jamaica that we live in, can we be sure that these people rights will be protected under an adverse possession rule? Because the government might well say these are lands. These are government lands. So these are some of the things I'm worried about when I hear the government talk about land ownership. Because the truth be told, there is a land, there is a land ownership problem. Sorry, people, I'm a computer start the bulldozery. There is a land ownership problem that we can see unfolding with leader. Local government tell we say. You have to have land. Central government tell we say. You have to have land to get government assistance. But there's a confused twist to it though. TikTok much louder, sounding better. Well, you're over TikTok, Colin, you're over my TikTok page as well? Let me check that I'm using the right mic over here. Yes, I am. If that's what you're referring to, my iPod tend to pick up sound good. And while you mentioned that, I want to make an announcement tonight of the Drive Time London slot going forward. We're going to possibly bring Drive Time London over onto TikTok, probably only onto TikTok, for the reasons I want to turn that slot into a panel discussion. So what I want all of you to do tonight, let me provide you the link to this TikTok platform. Those of you who have not subscribed to this, follow this TikTok. This is the platform that such debate or discussion will be held on. So I'm going to put the TikTok in the YouTube link. So those of you, if you want to make sure you'll be a part of that program, whether by participating or an audience, you can make sure you're following the TikTok that will be doing that. Because as I said, we are right in the silly season and we want to hear from everyone. What are you expecting from your political leaders going forward? Let me pin. So if you're one of the avid YouTubers, make sure to keep up. You also subscribe to the link in the top of your chat. It is now pinned in the top of your chat. You can just click the link and make sure you follow so you are a part of that channel. And we want to start that next Monday. We want to kick off next Monday evening the Drive Time London discussion panel on TikTok. So please bear that in mind. We will be reminding you as the week go along as to us starting that type of discussion within the Drive Time London slot, because I've waffled on quite a bit for the day. So that section is for people to come up into the box and have their say. So hope you can all be a part of this extensive arm of the Global Television Group, because you have to be in all the space when it comes to information and allowing people to have their say as well. Not everybody wants to turn their phone and camera on and sit down and witter on for a few hours or so, but a lot of people don't mind having their views heard. is only TikTok. It's only for TikTok, Mr. Wayne. Yes, that's panel discussion because we tried it on YouTube back in the past. People didn't engage well, but over TikTok is a platform where that type of system, TikTok is designed for that type of system where you can do all of this through TikTok, whereas if you're doing it through YouTube, you have to do it through your studio and all of that. I find that TikTok is more of an engaging platform when it comes to paneling discussions. So I hope we can. Candice Forbes, thanks, cuz. How you do, cuz? I hope we can find our groove in that space, as well as some of you folks that may not be on TikTok because of the decadence that goes on over there. Maybe it's a way to come over there and say everything over TikTok is not all one disgraceful decadence. There's a lot of good conversation and good things that goes on over TikTok. It's really how one wants to use TikTok, really. So we are, I'll get it even up. Okay. It's good to be in that space as well because it gives people more confident and opportunity to have their voice heard as well. So I hope we can all be a part of that because the silly season is approaching and I'm sure people will have a lot to say. But the Blue Lagoon, the Jamaica Heritage Trust, or what's it they're called, because it's a big computer play up every time. Let me try go into that thingy. So let me try look upon it from my phone. There's an article in the Observer regarding the Blue Lagoon. And Portland people, if you're not here, want to help me with Dawania. Blue Heritage Trust is saying, I'm sure that's my understanding, that members of the public are not being charged. Members of the public have free public access to the Blue Lagoon, Evan Bradford. That article is half correct. Right. Let me try, Gloria Morris, fumble my way through this article for you. The National Heritage Trust has moved to dismiss claim on social media that members of the public will need to pay to access the Blue Lagoon in Portland. National Heritage Trust comment following reports that the Blue Lagoon and surrounding lands will be sold to private entity and access restricted to people who can afford to pay to use its facility. However, the National Heritage Trust, in a media release, said these claims are inaccurate and misleading. The trust maintained that the Blue Lagoon in Portland is available to the public free of charge. The trust pointed out that there have been recent renovation at the facility, including rehabilitation of restrooms, landscaping, and installation of signs and storyboard. Sorry, I'm a phone me I read from, so hold on. It noted that some vending, including craft vending, is allowed on the Blue Lagoon, on the Blue Lagoon shore, rather. Space for parking is limited. This challenge has contributed to some visitors using privately owned properties such as nearby Tropical Blue Lagoon Resort, limited to park at a minimal fee. The National Heritage Trust does not provide security at the Blue Lagoon. The trust said it isn't, um, the trust said in its release, it's underscored, it underscored that the land surrounding the entire Blue Lagoon is currently and has been privately owned for more than 50 years. The National Heritage Trust says it has been regulating the space, protecting the national monument, and facilitating direct access by land and sea to the Blue Lagoon. The Blue Lagoon is a national monument that is managed by the National Heritage Trust. So they're saying that it's not them which is making charges for access. It is rather people who uses who you sorry. What happened here? Yeah, it's rather people who uses the nearby car parking facility are required to pay a minimal fee. So, to the people of Portland, is that a correct story that the fee payment is subjected to those? You have less than 6 months leave to shame on you. Hello, is it Carmel? Is that Garnet Stewart? Hello, good evening. Colleen, how you do? How you do? Is that a correct? Which part of the story Beat and Teach is misleading or not correct? Because they are saying is only certain people. Their argument would be that it would be more subjected to drivers who are using the nearby resort for parking facilities. But they're saying they don't provide security. So security is provided by who? By the local government authority or the MP. When there was that reopening, there was some prices that we were told. Can't wait to see you start. There's some prices that we were told for certain age children and adults. Certain age children were said to be free. That was the understanding, or that was what was on social media. So we don't know what going on. Maybe those who are providing the security for the Blue Lagoon should give us a breakdown and as to whether they are charging for the Blue Lagoon. Now, what Babs here do you know? What is their Babs? Hold on there.
It's my time, it's my place, it's my destiny. No one can take away what was meant for me.
Well, you know what's wild? I just saw them foreign. Oh, the media party. Okay. Never mind them and their media party. Hold on a second. But going back to Western Kingston's story, not Western Kingston, Central Kingston. What if people are living on squatters' land in those vicinities? Because of course we know saying that the Prime Minister election time now, it's a constituency that will be that one can say will be hotly contested. No, so this coming like the frocks and thing at the horse race. Let me go to the Prime Minister page. I want to show you the Prime Minister and his wife and all that things. On the road of this. Would the media over there? Anyway, hold on. We need to go into the Prime Minister page. Because I know one thing with Prime Minister, the Great. He always make sure say every little nookie and cranny captured for the media. That him can't stay out at all. So yes, they have their media party and all that jazz. I wonder if everybody get them good going over narratives to make sure all those are presentable. What if the Prime Minister and their media go along in? Let me see that me have that slot in where it is. Oh. So the Prime Minister and his media people having their getaway and get together, because you know it's a thing where I remember few of these young ladies from the I didn't focus on the last year, the 2022 or the 2020, I think the 2023 one. Was it 2020? Yes. The 2023 media party. I remember some of these young ladies were attired in green, and it sparked a media debate as to how the Prime Minister is molding and making the media. So you have some of the rest of them, I give them support to the PM. Delroy Chuck, just and ready to go. But it comes on the same week or eve when we see the Prime Minister present Desmond not Desmond, we named Delroy to everybody as the replacement for Mike Henry. Because, Mike Henry summoned the Prime Minister and said to avoid a kerfuffle, you need to come down here and let us talk. We don't know if the Prime Minister go, we don't know how the kerfuffle went on. But what we know is that Carl Samoda rescinded his resignation in order to maintain his seat because he did not agree with the choice that Andrew Holness or the party want to pass down his seat to. On the other hand, it seems as if Mike Henry is being strong-armed by the Prime Minister because Mayor Feder, who is at KSMC, who just jumped out of Senate today, is going after one of your representative seat and a safe seat, one could argue. So therefore, I'm going to make sure Mayor Feder gets to the representative, just like it was the same thing with Matt. Provide him and entrench him a safe seat. So that means that even if we lose the general election, we still have Matt because Matt in a safe seat. And we want further support. So it will be placing him in a safe seat also. Let's see how all of these things battle out at the general election, given it's not Mike Henry's choice. Will the delegates cause any rupture or standoff when it comes to working to support their chosen candidate? We'll all see that in few weeks, because honestly, I don't think the Prime Minister will continue the term into September and call an election down to the wire in the middle of a sweltering hurricane season, given that climate change is one of the Prime Minister's talk about speciality, and the amount that the rain and the weather prevented us from doing last year, one can suspect that the Prime Minister will highly likely announce a general election in the next 6 to 8 weeks. If the Prime Minister wants his best shot, then it is now. Because you don't want, while you're celebrating, you get knocked back. And you don't want to have a campaign around the country that puts you at a disadvantage. You don't want the uncertainty of a disaster. But then again, that would work for the Prime Minister. A disaster that cripples the country in a way where you have to cancel election because nationally it is not possible. So we are in a guess and spell and hitching and hiking all over the place. But let's see how it all progress with what we are seeing at the moment. Oh, that is is that BM6 or IM6? Is that IM6? Sometimes you can't say they find writing them on TikTok, TikTok writing them too fine for my eyes some of the time. But Prime Minister, because I hear you use the word land ownership today to the residents of Central Kingston, I have to bring myself back to the indigent or the government social housing program, because the assistance, Prime Minister, the possible assistance that you will be offering, it seemed to measure or worked its way into that type of criteria of the land ownership. Don't have a problem with that. But if those people do not own their land, will they lose the right to build or lose the right to continue their adverse possessions? Seymour, right. That is what I'm concerned by. If people are there as squatters, will there be an ownership issue with the government or with KCMC? Hold on.
Who are in the most difficult housing situations, meaning that their housing condition is such that it is considered to be unsafe, unhealthy, in a state of dilapidation, and their economic condition is such that they are not able to improve, upgrade, repair, or rehabilitate their housing. They're not working. They are probably retired. They're senior citizens. All right. Or they're indigent. We also require
Hold on.
that
The question I want to ask the Prime Minister, though, because what the Prime Minister criteria is for his new social housing project, a lot of these people would possibly fall into this category, because I'm not sure, does ADPEM, anyone know, correct me if I'm wrong, does ADPEM deal with disaster, but a fire is also a disaster? Does ADPEM provide relief and resources for people in situation like Central Kingston where they are burnt out? Because if you don't have a program like that under ADPEM, where you can address people emergency need, then you should have that under the local government councils across the country, where when people get into these emergency, like all-out fire destruction of their property, there are some emergency funds and things they can tap into for relief purposes, outside of waiting till before the Prime Minister pops up as a good Samaritan and making such offer. I think areas like these, ADPEM ought to have a level of control and jurisdiction over intervening and assisting when these things happen. But let's continue listen to the Prime Minister, because what he's explaining how his program is run, a lot of people this would benefit. A lot of people in the central Kingston fire situation would benefit from this. But the Lando is an issue which is either going to, one could argue, delay or deny assistance to some resident, because we know how land go in a lot of central western, in a lot of the communities of Kingston and St. Andrew, a lot of settlement where government would call them squatters, or the legal term adverse position occupiers, or so on and so forth.
The beneficiary has access, owns, or has permission. All right, or has permission to use the land on which the granted benefit will be built. So, how do you actually get on the program? The first point is through your member of parliament. It's an MP-driven program. All right. Bless. All right. So they will take your information. They are allotted 5 housing solutions each year for each constituency. All right, I hear you. And they then pass these applications on to the new social housing program, which is a unit in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation under housing. And that unit has an oversight committee which takes all the applications. They vet them and they do very thorough, very rigorous social investigation. So they actually come to your house or where you reside. They do a social survey. They talk to people in your community. They verify your employment status, your income status, your ability to work. They do a thorough check. And then after that process, they then verify that you actually either own the land or have access to the land or permission. And that would include bringing all the documentation and taxes up to date. And then from that process, it goes back to the selection committee to determine whether or not you actually pass the criteria. The whole process can take as short a time as 8 months, or we have seen situations where the process is as long as 2 years. So there is some amount of patience required. We are delivering now approximately 5 to 6 units per week, and we are completing probably about 8 to 10 per week. The objective is to... All right! The objective is to increase the pace of completion and increase the pace of delivery. We're over 300 houses now, so I'm expecting that next year the program will have developed the horsepower to be able to increase the pace at which we deliver, so that more people can get their houses more quickly. All right, TikTok, good talking to you. I'm going to get back to some work now as we head to the next location.
When you heard all that from the Prime Minister, that would all sound well and good to the ears, sound very helpful, one would say. But if you allow the Prime Minister to talk a bit more, then you'll actually find out that the Prime Minister is running a racketeering. A racketeering, in my view, the Prime Minister is running. Why? Because what the Prime Minister is doing is not legal in law. How the Prime Minister can manage to take leased land when the Prime Minister is refusing to build on squatters' land. Because if you live on a piece of land and you cannot show proof of the land or permission to use the land, then you automatically is seen as a squatter to the land. So that is where the problem comes in. But when you hear the Prime Minister explain it for yourself, you then understand that how could this be possible where the government either, one, takes ownership of people's land through the indigent social housing project, as Desmond McKenzie explained to us, or the government placing two families in a confrontation when the, am I in the right slot? Yes. When the Prime Minister told us that we build property on leased land, and when we do that, we make sure the beneficiary goes to either the person it was built for or the person who owns the land. Just give me a second. I'm finding that second clip of the Prime Minister for you before we move on to Desmond McKenzie. Because while that promise was being made today, it was both of them that are there making the promises to the people. Furthermore, the two housing project are coming like Andrew Olness coming on my phone, come take out the video. So the two housing project that are of concern when it comes to poor people's land, those two housing projects are run by the Prime Minister and by Desmond McKenzie. Both of them were unseen in Western Kingston. The second clip, me I try to find phone, but me soon find it. Because it is important to listen to the Prime Minister on that utterance, because they claim that we lied in our reporting that the Prime Minister and Desmond and all sort is stripping away poor people. And how come we can't find this video tonight? You know what, remind peeps, the ear, and I'm going to find it because it's important. Members of the Jamaica Labour Party or the government would want to confuse or convince us that what we heard isn't the truth, or we chose deliberately to run with a story. And it is why I want to bring back this housing and land situation tonight, because of such utterance from the Prime Minister. Because we have to remind them that we are still in confusion as to how this land ownership thing. Tomorrow I have to go clean up my library because I'm taking too long to find things. We have to remind them that what we often hear is not often what the government means. But because we so lie and mix up, that video have to be somewhere at top in it. Oh, for crying out. It not just so far down. Oh, no worry, me I go find it. If Andrew Honest come in on my computer, come mess it up, let me change the gridding so I can identify it faster. Full seat, yeah. Here it is.
We build houses.
This is the video that needs to be listened to carefully. If it was a slip of the tongue, the Prime Minister would have corrected it. Jamaican for Progress, I actually went to school and I actually went to university. All right? Don't understand your sentence because in university they didn't teach us to read and understand nonsense. Okay? So maybe sometime when I get the chance to learn nonsense, I will get around to understanding. All right? Never mind. Anyway, it is important to listen to the Prime Minister because this is what people like Jamaican for Progress rather, and a lot of people run around and target with platform where PNP liars, where this to do that, but what we're actually using, what we're actually using is the lies by the Prime Minister. What you cannot say here, that I'm mincing the Prime Minister's word. What I'm doing, Jamaican for Progress, for very low IQ people, is help them to understand where the Prime Minister confused the people in his speaking, or the Prime Minister told a blatant lie. Bear in mind, I'm not just sitting here telling you a story that I heard that the Prime Minister said to somebody that I didn't hear, but that person told me that it was what the Prime Minister says. I am playing a video clip of the Prime Minister. I know you all don't like to hear it. You're going to hear it continuously until your leader adjusts the blunder he made in public. If you all claim it's not true and we are lying, your Prime Minister is under duty to correct the blunder. Take legal advice and let somebody tell him that no Prime Minister, you cannot build a concrete structure on leased land. That's no problem, you know. The Prime Minister and Desmond McKenzie cannot roll back the story. This is why them go on the website and pull down and rejig the information. But the video is still here. Those information, we copied them before the changes. Why you don't want to hear those things? Why you don't want to ask the Prime Minister to address that? Listen to your Prime Minister well.
We build houses on lands that belong to the beneficiary. And I use the term belong in its loosest sense.
And you see, when you're dealing with legal territories, you have to understand the difference between when a person says beneficiary to when a person speaking of ownership. These are two different things in law, especially on the issue of land. Listen to the Prime Minister well, becoming no labor rights on an IQ very, very low. Listen well.
We build houses on lands that belong to the beneficiary. And I use the term belong in its loosest sense. So the beneficiary, and as a cock crow, to say that it is true, the beneficiary must show with proof to the new social housing program that they have interest in the land in the form of a title which shows their ownership, or they have a lease in the land which shows that they have approval from the owner to occupy the land. And usually we will accept leases that are considered long-term lease. Long-term leases are usually over 40 years, 50 years and more, because that ensures that the home that is built on the land stays with the beneficiary. So the new social housing program does not reclaim any house. Indeed, it couldn't, because once the house is constructed, it becomes.
The fact that you're telling us that the house built on the land stays with the beneficiary, that's a big legal problem. What you must address, Prime Minister, what happened when the lease expires? What happened when the lease expires? Because when the 50-year or more lease expires, who gets the benefit of the land as opposed to the house? Because there's an ownership right over the land, and there's a beneficial right to use the land, which is the beneficial right of the person who leased it for the 50 years. You don't see that as a problem? You think that it would be okay for the people. All right, moderators, can you block Jamaican for Progress? The minute you all come over here and you start to call other vloggers' name, I used to be coming around and go nasty and holy and push you back, grease your head, and push you back up your mother tonight. I'm going to block you from my platform. The reason why I don't generally block people, but when one becomes so dunce with it, this is where uno are not tolerated on my platform. Me accept labor right over here, knowing that uno dunce, disgraceful, and is unable to have a conversation. Anyway, make the dog shit stay, because you know a fly MB, if I shit over here, he has to follow. Welcome, fly. Pitch on the shit. All right? Thank you. The problem with members of the Jamaica Labour Party, they cannot counter any argument put forward on this social housing issue or this indigent social housing, because we have exposed the scam of this government, and this government cannot rebut this scam. Then you have the dunce them think they can come to your platform and behave like the hooligans and the outcasts of society that they are. Them come to your platform with the nonsense. What you all must come and do is explain what the Prime Minister says that is correct, and give me in a legal explanation, as opposed to when the 50-year complete, who has the right over the house and the land, which belong to two different people.
It's the property of the person who either owns the land or has authority to use the land for the long term.
The person who has ownership of the land or the person who has permission to use the land in the long term. Colleen, thank you. Isn't this stealing from Paul to Peter?
So the new social housing program does not reclaim any house. Indeed, it couldn't, because once the house is constructed, it becomes the property of the person who either owns the land or has authority to use the land for the long term.
Did you hear the Prime Minister buffle and cracked up at that very point? Because the Prime Minister knew he was lying to the people. The Prime Minister knew he was lying. The Prime Minister knew it was a con when he told the people that. That's why the Prime Minister buffled and cracked up, because what the Prime Minister explained have no basis in law. But at the same time, the Prime Minister is trying to make it out that he might do things legally because he's making sure that he gets assurance by way of document that you have right to use the land, whether you bought it, it was handed down to you as heritage, or for that matter, you leased it, which becomes the very problem with the Prime Minister's aspect of the social housing. You know why I'm so upset? Because it explained too well over here. It's not explained over here in a confused way that leaves people confused when they walk away from my platform. They clearly understand exactly how and why this is a scam run by the Prime Minister. And let the Prime Minister explain his scam in entirety, because this is really what you all don't want to hear. This is what you really all don't want to respond to, or you can't correct it because you have pushed your foot in your mouth and it stayed there choke your same way. So listen to the Prime Minister and his nice little baby looking after the poor, stealing, giving in the left and stealing in the right.
We build houses on lands that belong to the beneficiary. And I use the term belong in its loosest sense. So the beneficiary, and as a cock crow, to say that it is true, the beneficiary must show with proof to the new social housing program that they have interest in the land in the form of a title which shows their ownership, or they have a lease in the land which shows that they have approval from the owner to occupy the land. And usually we will accept leases that are considered long-term lease. Long-term leases are usually over 40 years, 50 years and more, because that ensures that the home that is built on the land stays with the beneficiary. So the new social housing program does not reclaim any house. Indeed, it couldn't, because once the house is constructed, it becomes the property of the person who either owns the land or has authority to use the land for the long term.
If you are in any confusion of what the Prime Minister says, then your time in education was an awful waste of time and money. An awful waste of time and money, but the scam gets worse, isn't it? When you listen to the Minister of Local Government, the scam even get worse, deso. Because when you zoom in on the Prime Minister's scam, the Prime Minister's scam really wants set up people for legal battles or for a machete chopping and all of that, because we know how land dispute are in our country. And then when Mas Tom comes to the Prime Minister with a 50-year lease of Miss Mary's land, and the Prime Minister went on to build a concrete house on Miss Mary's land. When Mr. Tom lease finishes in 50 years, who gets the benefit of the house and who gets the benefit of the land? Only a fool will not understand that that is a massive problem created by the Prime Minister. Anyone doesn't understand that, then it's an awful waste of time.
The social.
But it even gets worse with the Minister of Local Government, as we would have said, worser when it comes to the Minister of Local Government, because he broke down his scam. His scam was broken down. So even those of you members of the Jamaica Labour Party who failed Jamal School, horrible, because it's why you don't go on personal attacks when you cannot deal with the facts. The Minister of Local Government explained his crime against the people of Jamaica in more detail than the Prime Minister did. Hold on, you talk to them.
The social indigent
Minister of
housing
Kingston.
program of the government of Dr. Andrew Holness, and I'm really proud of what we have been able to accomplish and lives that we have touched and changed.
I'm happy that you've shed some light on it, and I would have wanted you to a little bit more into the program itself, since it was started by your ministry.
Okay, what the program does, as I said before, persons can apply. They are investigated by the poor relief officers. They must have the land to build the units. And once that is done, we now proceed after the investigation to see whether or not the persons are eligible. They meet the criteria which is set up, because you must be a part of a program that does not allow you on your own. And there are cases where we have provided houses for persons who probably are not that destitute, but because of their circumstances, we have provided for them. Now, the Poor Relief Department of the municipal corporations retain responsibility for the units.
Yes.
So while you occupy those units, the Poor Relief Department does its monthly checking on the units. You are not allowed to do any addition to the units. The units come fully furnished. It is something that I when I came up with the idea of furnishing the units, we did it because there are cases where we saw persons have homes, but there is nothing for them to sleep on. So we figured it does make sense to give you a nice room, and then you have to sleep on the cold ground.
Or furnish the
So we provide the necessary furnishing for the unit.
Right.
Now, the unit cannot be rented. It is not for sale. No addition can be done to the unit. And the unit cannot be handed down to family. And we have cases where occupants have died, and the Poor Relief Department retains the unit, and then it is handed over to someone else who is in need.
Absolutely.
So what we do, and we encourage persons to take care of the units. We notice that a lot of all of our units are built from concrete, and it has been done deliberately.
The scamming laid bare all of our housing are built from concrete, and we done it deliberately. I wonder why the minister chose those particular words. What you must all address, because if the PNP pays me, they would be wasting their time to pay me to tell the truth. What the PNP would be doing is wasting money. Because if you're paying people for media narrative, you're paying them for spins and lies. You're paying them to make a truthful argument look like a lie. It is why Marlon Morgan does his job so well. Because Marlon Morgan is paid to make a truthful story look like a lie, or a lying story looks like the truth. The issue is none of you, whether the Prime Minister, Desmond McKenzie, or any member or supporters of the Jamaica Labour Party, can come out here and clarify the lies that we told. The mix up, the PNP narrative and the PNP propaganda that we are spewing. It's still not yet been counteracted by any of you. All on go out on personal attacks. That is not enough to explain to the people that we are lying. Tell us that we're lying and cannot speak to the very words spoken by the Prime Minister and Desmond McKenzie. Just show the pitiful place where members of the Jamaica Labour Party is at the moment. It shows the mindset of those who said to be leading our country, which is in dire disgrace. So when you're ready for come attack that we are PNP agendarists or narrative, fine, but this platform is using the truth. Is the truth that the UNO cannot respond to. Why not continue to go on the personal attacks? Win some. Thank you. Welcome. Saying somebody is lying is not enough when they're using your very own words. And that's why we fear the Prime Minister going to West Central Kingston today and making these fanciful promises, because we do not trust the Prime Minister. Because the Prime Minister proved himself over and over to be a disgraceful land thief. Disgraceful land thief. And that's why this is why I'm bothered by the Prime Minister's utterance to the people of Central Kingston. Because we know where the Prime Minister sees the opportunities to steal land, or where this particular Prime Minister sees the opportunity to steal, he makes well of it. The evidence is plain in front of us, where the Prime Minister cannot justify his asset as opposed to his earning. If the Prime Minister think he was a clean person, if the Prime Minister think he was not corrupt, the Prime Minister would not have such a massive problem with Section 14.5 of the Corruption Prevention Act.
That we are going to assist those persons who have been displaced by the fire. We're going to try and do it as quickly as possible. But it is not something that can happen overnight. Before we can assist in any meaningful way other than the humanitarian assistance, which is already in train, the building assistance, we have to determine the ownership of the land. That's number one. And then we have to do some social investigation into the circumstances of the persons to determine the extent to which we can help. All of that we are going to put into train.
Notice what the Prime Minister is explaining is taking on the same pattern of their social and indigent housing explanation. The land rights, then the social investigation, then the help come or don't come. Talk, Prime Minister, talk. Out of your dainty, many lying, wicked, corrupt, criminal, thief the people of Jamaica resources mouth. Talk, Prime Minister.
Let me assure you that we are going to assist those persons who have been displaced by the fire. We're going to try and do it as quickly as possible. But it is not something that can happen overnight. Before we can assist in any meaningful way other than the humanitarian assistance, which is already in train, the building assistance, we have to determine the ownership of the land. That's number one. And then we have to do some social investigation into the circumstances of the persons to determine the extent to which we can help. All of that we are going to put into train to ensure that we can help the persons dislocated to come back to some form of normalcy.
If them not have no title for them yard, still
very good question. That we cannot build on property that we don't know who own it. We can't just go onto people's property and build. So we have to establish ownership. Once ownership is established, then we can determine what we can do, whether it is to replace a building or to give a grant. Now, for those persons who are living on property that they don't own or don't have the title to, then we still will help, but we will help you maybe with building material or some other form of assistance. But we cannot build on land that is not our land, or we don't have the rights to build on it. That's just the reality of the situation.
Which one?
So I understand from the Member of Parliament that the land situation is being assessed, that they do have titles and permission. And so for those that they don't have the title, or they know who the owners are, then we will seek to get permission from the owners to build. But the first thing is to establish who owns the land so that the government itself is not violating people's property rights by going on to people's land and doing whatever we choose. That's not how we operate. All right. So anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for the welcome, and we'll do as much as we can very quickly. All right.
The land rights stand out here. If the people cannot show that they own the land, what happened? He spoke about a grant. But then again, we also heard the grant argument advanced during burial. Me no send no people no get grant, but we're still yet. We're still yet to know how much people get grant, or if there's any grant that was issued out. Because the only, as far as I'm concerned, check Fly Green went into my community and give out was some $20,000 vultures for them to go and buy fish pot wires. The people who were waiting for assistance, those who lose them roof and all that, I'm still yet to be aware, being made aware of any meaningful assistance that came from Floyd Green or the Jamaica Labour Party government in my neck of the woods in Southwest St. Elizabeth. What is wrong with what the Prime Minister said? Lennox, I didn't went to school. If you don't understand what the Prime Minister says, I didn't went to school. I don't understand either. All right? Do you hear people coming out complaining why you are complaining? Okay. This is what people in the media do. This is what people who have a voice do. This is who people who have a passion for justice do. Is you speak on behalf of the downtrodden and the less fortunate. But I have a problem, like you, Lennox, is understanding when the Prime Minister speak. So you have your understanding, run with it. I have my understanding, I'll run with it. But what I'll say to you is that the understanding that I have and the explanation that I gave, it has a basis in law. All right? What the Prime Minister needs to come out and tell us is that his explanation has a basis in genuinity and honesty. Just that we want to hear. Because I know you all are very iggy and jittery about this scam of the government that is being exposed. We take too long to find out is the reality. We take too long to find out. The wicked evil PNP them who we pay to be our voice, or eyes and our ears, they seem to have never realized, or them realize and just go silent panwe, that the Jamaica Labour Party for 8 years have been running, 8 to 6 or whatever years, have been running a scam on the people, have been stealing people land under the disguise of we are helping you. But I am not here to understand for people with low IQ. I have elevated myself above that stage. So if you don't have a problem understanding, then what I would suggest is that you go back to school, or you go back to pay attention to education. All right? Because if you're not paying attention, if you're not a good listener, learning will be a far-fetched thing for you. You understand? Very far from the brain. But me know some don't like to hear it, but because we are representing poor people, because we are talking on behalf of poor people, all this government will have to do is to suck it up and move on. But when we say this government is a thief, this government is a thief. When we say this government is a criminal, this government is a criminal. The evidence have been laid bare in front of us. When we say this government is a con artist, this government is a con artist. Look at the many different rulings from the Constitutional Court that goes against this Prime Minister. If the Prime Minister wasn't involved in conning and scamming the people, the Prime Minister wouldn't be caught by the court so many different times. so many different times, playing with your constitutional rights, manipulating and playing with your constitutional right. But yet still, the all on one Donald Trump to protect black people and migrants in a foreign, when UNO protect UNO own prime minister to steal from the poor. Good evening, Dr. Andrew Michael Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica. Happy International Women's Day to you, Prime Minister. Remember, we're going to tell the Prime Minister, the second female Prime Minister of our country. We're going to make sure we tell the Prime Minister, happy, what's your other call it, day to you. Happy International Women's Day, Prime Minister. And we're going to make sure we tell the Prime Minister, happy International Women's Day until Saturday. Remember, the Prime Minister celebrate the ladies of the cabinet, more the ladies of the night of the cabinet of Jamaica. The ladies of the night of the cabinet of Jamaica. Fawn and fawn over the Prime Minister and how the Prime Minister is one of the best female Prime Minister ever to be elected in our country. This female Prime Minister, they said, broke the glass ceiling. Happy International Women's Day, Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Gonna take everybody for fool. Every Almighty God soul gonna take for fool. The problem is what I would challenge member of the Jamaica Labour Party to do is to come out here and be honest. Something which uno know say, uno and it's not in the same school class or anything for that matter. Honesty, that is what the big bother is for you all. It is why Darrell Vaz is trying to use violence against the people of Portland. Listen to Darrell Vaz telling voters, if you don't vote for me, I'm going to dig up the road in front of your house. And I don't like the truth, but when only members of the Jamaica Labour Party talk the truth, and we no. It is because members of the Jamaica Labour Party, from the Prime Minister right down to the supporters on social media, they have a massive problem with the truth and honesty. And because of that, they cannot advance any logical or meaningful argument. Thus, whenever time they come across a conversation, they dive straight down into the gutter. I mean, they take a deep dive all the way down into the gutter. It is why Andrew Holness, 8 years, is being so ghettoized. It has been filled with corruption and scandals and thieves, and all sorts you can think of. Elevate on yourself, JLP. Elevate on yourself. Elevate on yourself. If you don't elevate yourself, nobody can take you serious. This is why all of us see you all as liars, thieves, and scammers. It is why your very prime minister is in front of the court trying to struck out a law that protects the Jamaican people against corruption. That is what our prime minister is doing. Our prime minister, who regularly speaks about how much he upholds the rule of law. Don't you see anything wrong with that? But on a reminder, Arlene Foster, how you do? On a reminder, my people, on YouTube, the link to Producer Wayne Global TV TikTok is in the top of your channel. Make sure you subscribe to that channel, because during the Drive Time London slot, we are going to utilize our TikTok more by having panel discussion where every Jamaican is welcome, or everyone rather is welcome to have a discussion. What we will not accept is the arrogant, low IQ, disrespectful behavior of members of the Jamaica Labour Party that we regularly see display themselves on a lot of TikTok live or on social media in one's comment or whatever. So if you want to make sure you keep up with the Drive Time London slot on TikTok, then make sure you subscribe to the TikTok pin in the YouTube channel, because that's where we will be hosting our panel discussion, especially that the silly season has emerged, and there's a great suspicion that the Prime Minister will be dissolving Parliament in the next 6 to 8 weeks to have a general election before the hurricane season starts. We hope to kick off that slot next week, Monday. We'll continue to remind you while the week goes on. And of course, I'm going to have my moderators everywhere I am. So the really disrespectful, low IQ members of the Jamaica Labour Party know that they are not welcome with that behavior. On a general level, all are welcome. But if it's about members of the Jamaica Labour Party continue to turning up groaning like a pig and wallowing in mud, it is just not acceptable. We are speaking about our country and our people, not about wallowing in mud with members of the Jamaica Labour Party. So I hope it's quite clear to members of the Jamaica Labour Party, your piggish and disgusting mentality and behavior, it's really not welcome on Global TV. I know you all cut up over here a lot of the time because it's an interested program that analyze and break down things for you to understand. I get that. But because uno so dunce and you can hold on a temper, we know how it go. But it's a learning curve. When we catch up one day, everybody not learn at the same speed. All right? So we want to thank you all very much. I want to thank you all very much for being here tonight. I mean, it was the only panel labor right. When we're going to have to cross Debbie finger. When we're going to have to cross Beat and Teach finger. When we're going to have to cross Colleen finger. So only for people out here wait pound. So don't come with the malarkey and all that jazz. I mean, what I would encourage members of the Jamaica Labour Party to do is to pick up a book. See, who is this person? Daphne Boy. I tell you, there goes Daphne Boy. Perfectly intelligent, showing that his mother and father, money was wasted. Wasted, low IQ, Daphne Boy. Thank you very much, Daphne Boy. Welcome to the platform. Your interaction is not welcome, but you are welcome to the platform. Thank you, Daphne Boy, for explaining, for helping to explain to my TikTok audience exactly what I'm explaining. That your IQ is very low. You waste your mother's and father money. Waste it. You have wasted a whole desk space in school. I mean, you probably wear car key. But one can see that what you did during your years of education is tap out a road and play marble or tap on shop pizza with a drunken man then, because you actually sound drunk right now, Daphne Boy. All right, Daphne Boy. Man, Everett Warmington, all your own corner, or Cliff Hughes and Wayne Walker for that matter. Anyway, my people, thank you very much for being here with us tonight on the Global Television Group. Lovely to have your support. Remember to follow our TikTok, where we are going to give the labor right them heartache, bowly gripe, and fluxy complaint. Thank you very much for being here this evening. Join us back tomorrow. We'll be doing our 3 slots. We'll be doing the At a Glance program, then Drive Time London, then, of course, the People's Point of View. Thank you very much, and good night, everyone, from the Global Television Group. And make sure you subscribe, share, follow, and like. Thank you, and good night.
If you don't like missing out on the latest shows but still enjoy classic hits, then Global TV Group 358 is your perfect match. Global TV Group 358 isn't just another channel, it's your ultimate TV experience. From breaking news to binge-worthy dramas and timeless classics, we've got it all. Our unique blend of original content and global favorites means there's something for everyone. And guess what? With GTVG's seamless streaming, you can watch anywhere, anytime. Plus, our interactive features let you be part of the action. So, whether you're a seasoned binge watcher or a casual viewer, Global TV Group 358 is here to keep you entertained day and night. Don't just watch TV, experience it with Global TV Group 358. Subscribe now and never miss a moment.